Rolling with it. Okay, welcome back everybody to Coffee and Art in the Morning. I'm Dee Dee. We're into another segment now, into a color book segment rather. Let me move our drawing out of the way. And yeah, so I'm also going to move my pencils. I should have done this before I hit record. Yeah, I should have. Okay, so we were drawing, we were sketching, and now I want to get out the watercolors. Okay, so if you have any questions, put them in caps. If you're watching this recording, it's a live show on Ustream with live people, live chat. So if you hear me answering questions repeatedly, it's because people ask questions and I answer them. Okay, so we are now going to work a little bit back in the Rainforest Escape. Let me get a water brush. It's the easiest. And so we worked in this before, and I've talked about it and how I'm working. I want to finish this whole book, but I'm doing it in little segments. So, for instance, and this is a fold-out book, so I'm going to have to be shuffling it back and forth. So, for instance, I did some washes on this, and then I'll go back and in between with either watercolor markers or the kids' Crayola markers, and go in there and do shading, okay? But I don't really finish any one thing at a time. I kind of jump all over in this book because by doing that, it'll make me want to complete it. If I start on one page and try to go page by page by page, it's going to take me forever. But I kind of like trick myself into thinking, oh, you've really got quite far in this book, so you need to keep working on it. So again, some places just have a little bit of wash. Some just have a little bit of edging, a little bit here and there. And this paper I've talked about before, it kind of feels like watercolor, kind of feels fabric-y and soft, velvety kind of feel, but it's not, I wouldn't call it true watercolor paper because it's going to pill if you keep going over and over and over a wet area without drying it in between. So if you're going to use watercolor on this paper, even though it feels like watercolor paper, I wouldn't still saturate it. Or you're going to get a lot of wrinkly pages, which I don't mind some wrinkle and warbling in my pages, but you have to be aware of that in any color book, okay? And so you can see they have fold-outs, fold-outs. And I know the camera's going to flash back and forth while until we get situated on a page. So, oh, flamingos, let's keep moving. Sorry, Eileen. So we did some washes on the leaves, and then I went back and colored the background with the Crayola Super Tip markers. Or sometimes I'll use the markers Eileen gave me, let me get them over here. And I have little palettes here for different watercolor projects. You can also just use the tray, a porcelain tray. But these are the markers that Eileen got me. They're the Kuretake Zig Clean Color Real Brush Watercolor markers. These are real watercolor in a marker. And so they're not like kids markers. Like these are the kids Crayola Super Tip markers. And they look like this. And they're, uh-oh, did I freeze? Hang on, guys. I think I had mail come in or something. I froze. There it goes. So they look like this. So you can get thin, thick, medium lines, but they're just water-based markers. They're not like real watercolors like these are. So we have that too. Oh, okay, hang on. Samantha just messaged me. I have to answer this. Excuse me, my granddaughter takes precedence. One moment. Okay, you got your ITC coming in the mail. Oh, yay, Koga Nation, Koga. Not sure how you pronounce it. Okay, and now let me keep going here. So this one's a little further along. Let me move all my pencils out of the way. I can't slide my book back and forth because there's no room. So you can see here, worked on this one. This one's a little further along. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of do a flip. None of them are 100% done. I don't think anything in here is completely done. But I showed how we did washes on this and then went in there with the markers, the kids' markers. And it's kind of like some kind of a tiger lily type design on these flowers. So I just went in there and darkened up, and then this is a lighter one, then an orange one, and get lighter and lighter. Little frog. So I'm just going to do a quick flip, then we'll just continue to work on something. Again, this is just I'm working throughout the book. No particular order, just whatever I land on that I feel like working on until we get done. Okay. I do recommend, and I did this as an example, I think, last time, the painting the background, especially if you're using watercolor or the water-based markers like the kids' ones. If you do the background first, which, you know, I like doing that with the acrylic paint, like a acrylic paint, that won't move. Okay, so in other words, if I use, you know, an acrylic paint to paint the background, I won't have to worry about touching it with water because it's not going to move. But when you use markers, the water-based markers, watercolor markers, or watercolors in the background, you have to be aware that if you touch that with water, it's going to move. You don't have to worry about that when you use acrylic paint. Okay, so just, you got to kind of keep that in mind. The big bird there. There's a bit of a dot. And again, these are just some washes and bases, and there's a snake and a little bit of background colored in there. Just to show you this book. Real quick again. And the only drawback that I really found so far with this book is the pages are perforated. So you can see right there where the pages are perforated, which if you get them wet, too much water on them, they're going to start tearing right there. So I've even had to put a little bit of Scotch tape on a couple of them where they started ripping out. And especially if you're going back and forth like we are a lot in this book, back and forth, you're wearing on that perforation. So, you know, be aware of that. We did this page last time we worked in this book. So you can see. Did a little bit more wash. See how that's coming right there, that perforation? So if I don't want it to tear out, oh, my boo. I'm going to put a little piece of Scotch tape just so it doesn't tear out, because I'm not going to tear these pages out. I want to finish this whole book. This one we did a little bit of dripping on purpose. You don't want, you know, you're the boss of your color book. You can drip, you can stencil, you can whatever you want. Yeah, these pages are, you know, very, they're kind of fragile where the perforation is. And again, because we're going back and forth and a lot of water and a lot of stuff going on, you're more apt to have it tear. So there's just all kinds of things going on. The other thing I want to say is I am not trying to be anatomically or botanically correct in the coloring. I might paint these banana leaves orange, purple, just because they might be a certain hue of green. I'm not trying to do it like botanical, but again, you could do that. You could look up these island tropical plants and color them, in their correct colors if you want. I'm not doing that. I'm just doing whatever I want to do. Because we're the boss of our color books, okay? Some like faux photos, a bunch of fruits, maybe some kind of a raven. Looks like he's on some kind of a seed pod. And then some backgrounds. Here's a background where I showed how to just do some washes in the background, then go back with detail. So again, washes of a watercolor, and then gone back in with marker to fill in. Now you can go back in there with your watercolor as well. It's just a little less time consuming. You go in there and color with, a background in with some markers. And so that's it. So anyway, I want to do a little bit more washes in here. I'm probably not going to do a whole lot of, let's go with this one. I'm probably not going to go with a whole lot of detail yet, because I'm just trying to get a lot of the base done of this. Although I will do a few little background tips or something like that to show you guys, but I'm not right now trying to complete any pages. So when you see me working in this book for however long it takes me to finish it, you're probably just going to see me skipping around, doing a little bit here, a little bit there, whatever. So just FYI, don't be expecting completed pages on here. I did want to show you, I was working in, okay, let me show you this real no, we already worked a little bit in the Daydreams book. And we did, I think we did 2 pages or 1 out of here. This page right here in the Daydreams, we did finish that. And then in the Summer Nights, remember I told y'all that back page reminded me of Denise? So I've got just a wash on it. Again, this is a watercolor wash. These pages are a little thicker in this book, but it's still not watercolor paper, right? It's not watercolor paper. But I did do a little bit of watercolor wash, since we're talking about watercolors. A little bit of watercolor wash on this, and this just reminded me of Denise, although I am going to put glasses on her. Until she got contacts at probably about 12, I think she started getting contacts. She wore glasses, and so this just reminded me and Hubster of her laying down with the cats. We used to have a Garfield and a Samantha cat, not to be confused with my granddaughter. Anyway, and she was a tortie cat, and Garfield was a gray. So I just did some washes of color again, so you can see there's no detail added in this. It's just some washes of watercolor. Same for this. There's no detail painted in yet. That's just a watercolor wash as a base. Okay, her hair, all that. So I'm going to put glasses on her, and there'll be more washes and color with both watercolor and markers. But I just wanted to show you again what it looks like at first with the wash. So when you start a color book page and you're using watercolors, don't say, oh, that doesn't look good, that doesn't look dark and rich like we use color pencils. This is just a base. So you can go back in there with both. Let me just see, I need to do a test color if I'm going to pick one of these. Let's see if this is going to be dark enough. Let me get a Post-it note here. No, that's not going to, I don't think that's going to show up. It's the right color, but, well, maybe. No, it's not dark enough. I need a darker. I might have to get the other ones out. Let's see how blue-gray. Okay, there we go. That's probably good. So you can go in here with a marker, because like these are real pointy. This is a real brush, right? They're called real brush markers for a reason. But any marker, even if the kid's Crayola marker, You're going to have a sharper, nice sharp tip where you can get in there with detail or with color pencil. But I just want to show you that it's just a start. It's just a base, right? So then you can get in there and do more detail. So when you start with the wash, just be aware it's not going to be vibrant and, you know, feel complete until you get in there with detail. So don't get discouraged when you don't see the vibrancy of your color pencils or whatever at first. Okay? All right, so I'm going to, I just have this, my little koi watercolor set. It's got, here's what it looks like there. Okay. I have all kinds of watercolor sets. This one's just the one I've been using. Use a little tray there. The colors that I use, and you know, anyway. So now I have a spray bottle. I'm going to move it over here away from the book. I'm going to wet everything down so everything's saturated and ready to go. Okay, and this one does come with a brush too. You know, same kind of brush, just this one comes apart. All right. Yeah, the kids markers work great for color book pages. You know, I mean, these are awesome, but they're not cheap. You know, if you're going to be if you want to do a watercolor, you know, blending and washing with like real watercolor, then these are awesome. But again, you know, they're not, they're kind of on the expensive side. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little bit darker blue green here, and I'm just gonna be using this in different trays. If I need more space for more colors, I'll just move this out and, you know, use that there. Okay. All right. So all I'm gonna do right now is, let's see. I think I'll do the banana leaves. I might even do them in I don't know what brown. Let's see. Let's start down here. So I'm going to do these in kind of a blue green. It's not turquoise, but it's, you know, a blue green. So hopefully y'all can see, guys. If I get too zoomed in, it's still a little bit on, it's not, it doesn't want to focus because of the light color of the paper. But hopefully you're getting an idea anyway. It's an overcast day here, and I'm having a lot of trouble getting the light to stay. All right, so I'm just gonna, all right, so you can see how right there I didn't try to go on each one of those leaves. I'm just doing like a wash along the edge. Okay. And the more I hold it up, the more I'm getting out of focus, I think. What is your favorite kind of watercolor? I don't really have a favorite brand. I'll use anything. I'm not a watercolorist. I don't watercolor that much. I don't really do watercolor paintings or marker paintings. I just pretty much use them in my color book. Although I did, you know, I've done a few paintings. Like y'all saw the boots, Brad's boots painting that I've done. That's the only one I really have out. I have some others in the closet, but that's the only one I really have framed and hung out. I just don't do watercolors. Most everything I do is color pencil. That's just my medium of choice, right? So this is a fine set right here, guys. This is a fine set. I mean, it's good, is what I mean. It's a Sakura Koi watercolor. You can get it, I think you can get it at Michael's. I think I got mine at Hobby Lobby. I mean, even this set was like, I don't know, because I always use coupons. 25 bucks, but I used a coupon. So that comes with a tray that sits on top with the water brush in it. But I mean, I've used everything, guys. You know, I'll use my Neocolor 2s, the water soluble crayons. I guess if I had to pick one thing, if I had to have a pick of a watercolor medium to use, it would be my Neocolor 2 water soluble crayons. Make sure if you look into those, guys, if you get any of them, make sure you get Neocolor 2 water solubles. Ask Paula. Neocolor ones are not water soluble. I watched your stream from the weekend, Paula, and you readdressed that again in your stream. That was hilarious. I giggle every time. Anyway, so I'm just going to do a little bit of the background here with the same shade of green here, just watered down, like right in the background there. Can y'all see, guys? What am I doing? Another steampunk? You mean in the steampunk color book? I'm not sure what you mean. If you mean a steampunk color book page. Hi, New York Crafter. I just want a little bit down here on the bottom part. I'm not going to go behind all those because I really just want to keep this light. I'm not doing a lot of backgrounds now. I'm doing backgrounds when it calls for a background, like where's one of the ones, you know, where you saw me like this. It's a full-on close-up, and that, you know, calls for filling in the background. But everything else, like this, I'm not going to do any backgrounds. This, I'm not doing any backgrounds on the, I'm going to leave the cream color of the paper showing because it's a nice paper. It's a nice creamy color. Maybe that's another reason I'm having a hard time focusing, but anyway. It's a nice cream color. And so, yeah, I don't know. I did so many with the steampunk girls and guys out of the steampunk color book. Then I cut them out and put them in my mixed media journals, you know. Okay, so now I'm going to switch up. Let's go with, why do I keep saying I'm gonna? My husband would have a fit if you heard me keep saying that. I need to re-wet some of these. Get another olivey, kind of light green. Let's add some water to it. I just have a spray bottle here that I'm constantly wetting things down. You can squeeze your water brush, but I'm really not doing that much. I'm not using much of the squeezing out water out of the water brush, but it is just handy to have a water brush. They do start wearing down after a while, so you know you've got to replace them. And I would recommend, these are the Pentel ones. See the ones with the barrel like this? It seems to me that the tips stay nicer longer in this particular brand. That's just what I found. But again, you know, I'm not endorsing or been endorsed by anybody. That's just what I've been used to using. So anyway, I just want to kind of do a little bit of different things. So, because I know everybody likes different things. So we did some sketching earlier. We did our world sketching without leaving the studio. Eileen's okay. Somebody said something about flamingos. Eileen's going to ignore you. And be careful. She's mod. She might bump you out. Oh. And it does take, this paper does take the watercolor nice. But, you know, I wouldn't say that you should wash the whole thing, like do a big wet in wet technique where you're watering down the whole thing. Because it will pill on you if you keep rubbing and, you know, try to use those, you know, don't be too rough with it. So again, this is just the initial wash, and if you want to make things darker or start shading things or whatever, then I would recommend drying it in between. So your paper like sets back up again. Your paper like, you know, re-hardens. So you're not being too rough with the paper. Let me turn my chair to get some air on me. Aw, I'm sorry you're having problems staying connected, New York. I think I'll do these back here, that color too. But this is relaxing, you know. And again, I get a little hurried when I'm on stream, so I can get as much done as I can, but don't ever feel like you have to hurry when you're doing your color booking or any project for that matter. You did a wash with your first page in Daydreams. How did it turn? How did you like it? And also another tip is a Kleenex is the best way to clean your water brushes off. It pulls the paint off much quicker than a like a paper towel or anything else. So I always use a Kleenex. That's just, I found that works the best. All right, so I think I'm going to go with a little bit of a rust color here. So add some more water because I want it real watered down, because this is, you know, this it's good paint, so it's real pigmented, saturated. I'll use some of the markers here again in a minute. Okay, so I get too much paint, I'm going to kind of get some off. I just want a little bit. I'm going to go with this, with these, I know there's probably these big, what do you call it, banana? No, this is not philodendron. It's probably a green philodendron, which I used to have tons of. I used to love having plants. I'll tell you all a story about when we lived in Texas and we were moving to Alaska. I had tons of plants in my house. Love plants. Always have loved plants since, you know, the 70s. Love plants. You know, macrame hanging ones and big ones, these big philodendrons like these that are really green, not this color, but it's my imagination plants. And so I love plants, and I had tons of plants. I mean, I had, I don't know, you could say 20 plants in every room in the house. I had plants everywhere. You love it? You love love watercoloring? Oh, well, good. You, Heather, Faye, good guys. I mean, I don't mind it. It's just not my medium of choice if I'm, you know, going to sketch, draw, paint, whatever. I like color pencils. So anyway, we were going to leave that morning, and so we went by Mom's house. All right, oh, let me back up first. So we're going to drive. We're driving to Alaska, just me and Hubster. The kids are going to fly up later. He got stationed to Alaska, in Anchorage. So we're driving from San Antonio to Anchorage, Alaska, which is 5,000 miles, okay? From San Antonio to Seattle is 2,500 miles, and then from Seattle up through, you know, British Columbia, all of Canada, and the Yukon Territory, and then back down into Anchorage is another 2,500 miles. We drove the whole way. So we had everything packed up, and I had all my plants, as many as I could possibly pack, into the back of our Blazer, packed full of plants. Hubster was going, you can't take these plants. I gotta take my plants. They're my babies. I gotta take my plants. I've had some of these plants for 20 years. You know, I love my plants. You're not gonna be able to take those plants all. And I didn't even think about trying to take them through Canada. Did I even think about maybe Canada wasn't going to let me cross the border with a bunch of plants? I didn't even think about that. Oh, I was going to drive my plants. But we got to Mom's house, and my mom and Grandma going, we'll take care of your plants for you if you want us to. You know, just leave them with us. We'll take good care of them. We're going to be gone 3 years. We'll keep your plants. And you're going to keep my plants for 3 years? Yes, we'll keep your plants for 3 years. Anyway, long story short, I left every one of my plants, every single one of my plants with Mom and Grandma. Left them all. Because I couldn't pick. I couldn't pick and choose one or two. And then again, like I said, I didn't even consider that maybe Canada wasn't going to let me drive through their country with a truck full of, foliage of unknown origin. So I left all my plants with Mom and Grandma. And, of course, 3 years later, I wasn't going to take them back. They became attached to them, right? I'm trying to let y'all see a little bit of watercolor mix in too. They weren't they weren't going to give me those plants back because they became attached to them. Anyhow, so we drove all the way. We drove all the way to Alaska. And we took our time, though. I mean, the kids, it was summer. The kids were out of school. They were going to stay with the grandparents while we were, driving. I think we took about 2 weeks because we went out and saw my other relatives up in Spokane. My grandfather was in Idaho. So we took our time, stopped and, drove the Yukon River and camped out, with the mosquitoes. Oh, you haven't seen nothing until you camp out in Yukon with mosquitoes in the summer. Just saying. I loved my plants, but anyway, and then needless to say, the other thing that was a kind of a issue was plants up on, everything is imported into Anchorage, right? And it still is. It's still expensive to live there as far as I've heard. I mean, this was back in 1983 when we drove up there in 1983. There's a couple of little, I think they're hummingbirds. I'm kind of painting them blue. Might go back in there with some, I don't know. I just want them to stand out. So this is back in 83, and we drove, and there was from after you left Canada all into Anchorage, it's the Yukon Highway. The Yukon. The Alcan Highway from after you leave the Yukon. And so we drove the Alcan Highway, which was not paved back in 1983. And, okay, let me see what color I want here. I want a little bit of a red. I want some little red fruity thing here. I don't know what it is. And so we took our time, drove all the way up there. It was fun. And then, of course, flew the kids up there at the end of the summer. You can see them peeking out, Mom. Okay, so let's see what other colors do I want in here. These might be pretty with a kind of a redder color. Let's see, let's add some red to that rust color and make these a redder color of plant. So again, I'm just doing a basic wash over everything, and then I'll go back in there with either darker watercolor, another layer of watercolor, or markers or other things. But right now I'm just trying to get washes in a lot of areas. So, guys, I'm going to get my chat scrolling locked in. I'm from northern Idaho and close to Spokane. You should have stopped there, Trina. Grandpa had a gas station in Coeur d'Alene for years and years. Back in the day, of course. Many years ago. But he lived in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And there's another little city right next to it. I don't remember if his gas station was in Coeur d'Alene or the little town right next to it. He lived in one gas station and the other. Mom would remember. Bye, Koga. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thanks for coming. Good to see you, meet you. Come back again. So you see, it's just basic colors here. So I'll dry it and add a little bit of something on something, just so you can see. And Mom, we've vacationed up there a lot too, when we were kids, because we lived in Texas and we vacationed California, Grand Canyon, Idaho, back up to Spokane where we had relatives. So. Okay, let's go into this little plant life over here. Something to stand out even more. Maybe some orange. Let's get some orange into that yellow and kind of dull it down. Oh, that's going to look too back to the mustardy color. Let's see. Needs to be a brighter, almost bright orange. Okay, let's just go with the bright orange. And maybe the little veins in this one will be another color to make it stand out. Because this one needs to be more of a rust color than I have it. Let's get some rust color going. 3 years, Lindsay. We lived in Alaska 3 years. Okay, that's too much. Gotta water that down a little. Back in 83, 4, 5, I think up to 86, I think. We left in 86. Just making these a little more rust color to kind of make them stand out from the oranger color here. Nice, Trina. Nice. That's an awesome view. Okay, so there we go, guys. Got a base coat. So I'm going to hit this with a heat gun. Yeah, Idaho is gorgeous. Okay, so I think that's dry. So again, now you can go back, now that it's dry, and go back in here, and I wanted that kind of a redder color here. Okay, and now you can go back in here and add more detail or more shadow. But you just want it dry because, like I said, this paper is not going to hold up to, lots of washes while it's wet. You want to dry it and then go back in and keeping it light here, guys. And then you can get in there and shade with another layer. Shadow. Put more shadow in there. Don't need much. Goes a long way. Thanks, Eileen. Yeah. Let's get a little bit more richness going in there. Now I want to get out some of my Eileen markers and do a little bit of play with those too, because those markers that Eileen sent me, the Zig Kuretake clean brush, I always get the name mixed up. Kuretake Zig clean color real brush watercolor markers. It's real watercolor, so you can get in there and do kind of the same thing as this. Or I could use my Neocolor too, crayons, same thing. again, you know, if you want to keep layering and layering, dry it and then go back so that you don't get the paper pilling up. And you can always go back over after it's dry, 100% dry. You can go back in there with color pencils if you want. Thanks, guys. Okay, let's come over here to this rust color one. And I want to mix up a little bit more brown colors. Use a little of the red too. And again, you have to keep squeezing on, because I've mixed it with this brush, so it's now the brush is loaded, right? So. Maybe the pics in this book would be great in a napkin. Would we go into a napkin? Yeah, I don't know, because it depends on what technique you're going to use. If you cut these out and glue them in, that's another thing, guys. If you're using watercolor or any kind of water medium that's going to move, if you cut that out and glue it in something else, you have to be very aware of the watercolorness of it, because it'll move. You can't put slap matte medium over it. You have to seal it if you want to do anything like that. And you know me, I don't like to fix it of anything. I don't like to smell it fixative. I don't seal anything if I can help it, you know. Okay, so you just got to be aware whatever you're using. If you cut it out and want to use anything in your napkin journal or art journals or whatever, you know, you got to be aware that this is going to move. This is not, even after it's dry, wet it again, it's going to move because it's watercolor. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and get into my watercolor markers from Eileen. And I think, I got to do a little bit of test here. Where's my sheet here? To see what colors that I'm going to, let's see. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so this is called mustard, although it looks more almost like a kind of a tan color more than a yellow, but it's going to work on this. Okay, so I can't see if I can hold it up just for a second here. So you can see I can get in there with tiny little areas. Okay, can't do it holding it up in the air very well, but I can do the stems and the I just want to do the centers of those leaves and the stalks. And if it looks too harsh, you can go back in there. We'll do that in a second. Go back in there with water, and kind of blend it out. But remember, these are real watercolors in a brush. It's not like kids, the Crayola kids markers, which these will move. These will move a little bit with water, but they're not going to blend and act like watercolors. Okay, they're not going to blend and act like watercolors like these are. Okay, those are water-based. These are actual watercolors. I know it sounds like, well, what's the difference? There's a difference, trust me. There is a big difference. So I'm just going to go in here on some of the details, the stalks and the veins on all the different little banana plant. And again, I know the banana plants are not this color, but in my world today they are. Yeah, they're very, very pigmented. Very pigmented. That's why I'm saying now I'm going to take my water brush, make sure it's clean with the blue or whatever on there. And I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to lightly blend out, just so that the veins look like they're kind of coming. Let's see if I can get one here. Here's one. So I'm just going to kind of go in here and just kind of pull off some of the color. It's very subtle, guys. You see how that kind of just makes it look a little more blendy in there? And you can go back and add more, take some out, because it's watercolor. See? I hope. So I'm just going to kind of go in there and just kind of blend off some of the harshness of the veins. Just kind of make it look like the veins are going out into the leaf. Then you want to make sure it's dry before you go in there with more layers. And that's because of the paper. That's because of the paper. It feels kind of like watercolory texture, but it's not like I don't even know what kind of paper it is. It's velvety, but it's not going to hold up like a watercolor paper. It'll still pill. So I'm just going in there and just kind of blending out some of that. Like that. Just softened it a little bit. Bye, Grammy. Okay, so I think let's go ahead and do a little. Let me dry it again. Let's dry it. I'm going to get into this one with a nice, like a burgundy color. What's this one? That's just brown. I want them with a burgundy color. Maybe it is the brown that I used last time with the burgundy. Let's see. Can't remember. Let me test. I think that's the dark brown. Yeah, so it is this lighter brown. Yeah, okay. It's called just brown, but it's kind of like a sepia color brown, and it'll work over this magenta color to give it a little bit more dark and shadow it a little bit more. I'm just kind of doing the same thing, going over some of the centers, and I'll go back in and blend it out. That one a little darker there. And again, these are real brush tips. It's not like a felt tip marker. That's a real brush there. Okay, that makes a difference too. The more I use these, the more I enjoy them, Eileen. Okay, so now you can see how that's kind of dark and harsh. Let me try to hold up just a little bit. So what I want to do now is go in here and just kind of feather it out. Can y'all see that? And this one's behind that one, so I want to keep that one kind of dark there. Okay, and then I might have to tap off excess. See the difference between that and that one? So I'm just going to go to all of them. And again, the pigment's starting to build up on my little brush here. So I'm going to need to wipe it off so it doesn't get too dark. And some of this, where the cluster of stalks are, right in there, it is darker in there. So just gonna blend it out. Love them. These make me think of the Kew Gardens. Aww. Is that how you say Kew? K-E-W? The gardens? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Although we were drawing them earlier, weren't we? So yeah, so then you can see kind of where it's going, and you see all these little, see all those little lines and everything in there. There's a good example. See, so veins are could be a total different color. You go back into a pencil or a marker and go back over, some or all of those little lines and leave the background yellow. That's what's nice about doing a wash. You got your background done, and you can go back in, All right, let's dry this. Thanks, guys. So again, I'm not doing any full-on pages because I'm trying to imagine that I'm working all through the book so I can get, those are the little captions at the back. So here's another example where I did lots of just washes of different colors, and it really needs more, but I wanted to do a little sample there so you could see how you can go in with the background if you wanted just a nice dark background, which again, I'm not doing that with very many of these because I'm leaving most of the backgrounds cream color. So let's do a little bit on this bird, and then we'll go ahead and go. All right, so I'm going to water down I got some Payne's Gray mixed up right here. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. Did everyone see the cheap price on Amazon for the artist edition of Secret Garden? No, I didn't see. I do have the artist edition, but I don't know. I didn't know there was a sale on it. Okay, so I'm going to just go a little bit. I'm going to do some shadows under each kind of layer of his wings. There's all kinds of layers to his wings here. And just keep building up. Less than $5? We all haven't gone over there and snagged it up yet. Where's Terry Trouble? She would have been posting links already. Don't forget, Barb streams on YouTube at 2. If anybody's here wants to put in a link, I don't see her here right now. Sometimes she pops in. Something about short-legged birds. It's just a kind of a running joke. I mean, it's not like Eileen's not like freaked out by it, I don't think, or afraid of them. She just has her own personal reasons for not liking flamingos, and we just kind of like tease her a little bit about it. She's a good sport. I won't say who said it, but someone goes, I'm just used to my short-legged husband. You girls, I'll tell you. Crack me up. Crack me up. So anybody got any questions or anything about this book or any color book or anything like that before we go? I just wanted to show a little bit more here every now and then, when I work in the different ones. I don't think I've done anything else other than that little bit of wash on that one that reminds me of Denise. I don't think I've worked in any other color books, I mean. I know. I think I hate flamingos. Got a pizza. I'll take some pizza muse. No, actually, we had pizza last night, so I don't really need pizza today, but go over his little beak. And again, I don't know, it's a crow or a raven. Probably doesn't have yellow claws and yellow beak. But in my world, he can have whatever color I want him to have. Okay, same thing down here on these. I think there's some kind of seed pods. I think that's a stalk and some seed pods. I really don't know, but that's what we're rolling with. Oh, it's thicker paper. Yeah, yeah. You like the color of them? Yeah, I should pull that out, show it to y'all if you want to see what the artist edition of the Secret Garden looks like. Okay, so I'm going to go down with the stalks right down here like this. Like maybe that's where they're connected to this. Let's just do a little bit of a wash here. I'm not sure what kind of seed pod plant this is, and I'm just kind of guessing. Some kind of leaves or stalks or something. They just kind of don't really look like leaves. They might be leaves, but they remind me of those, those little maple leaf things that fly out and pirouette in the wind. I think they're maples. That's kind of what this reminds me of, although the maple ones are more of a cream color. Nevermore, nevermore, yes. I mean, this would probably be a nice art journal too. You'd have to, again, test your pens or whatever. I like writing with Sharpie pens. Now, not Sharpie markers. Don't get them confused. A Sharpie pen is totally, well, I won't say totally different, but it's not. It doesn't. It's tiny. It's a pen. Okay. Sharpie pen. This is what I like to write with, or something this tiny anyway. I like these tiny little pens like that to write with. But what I'm saying is you might be able to write or do calligraphy. Yeah, a fence behind it, that's what I think too. Or it could be a sidewalk. Could be a sidewalk back there. Let's just go ahead and put I'll put some blue-gray on that too, whatever it is. Whatever it's supposed to be. Supposed to be. The Japanese maple. Yeah, maybe that's what it is, Suzanne. The one that, you see that look like fairy wings. I actually used them for fairy wings before in dimensional projects. They look like fairy wings. The seed pods that fall. Hey, Marilyn. The ultra fine Sharpie pen. Yeah, that's just I don't know if it's fine. It's pretty, I don't know, I can get much finer than that. Can't get much finer in Carolina than that. I scanned for you some pages of comic book from Japan. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what we were debating. If this was, it just kind of looks like some kind of a leaf thing. It's probably a branch and some leaves. They're very symmetrical. I'm not sure what it is. I thought of the seed pods, although I know they don't grow like that in a little row. The fairy wings. Yeah, let me show y'all a picture. I think it's called the Japanese maple. Let me see if I can find a picture on. Let's see. Let's put in Japanese maple seed pods. Japanese maple seed pods. That's probably going to bring us up something. Okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go. They look like this. They make great fairy wings. Let's see if I can find another one. And I know that flashed me out there, guys. Hang on. Let's see if I can find like an individual one, or well, here's one. See how they look like fairy wings? It's not showing the color, but let's see. Trying to find some good photograph of it. It's not wanting to show me a really, I guess those were pretty good. Yeah, I think that was probably the best ones. Like this. Yeah, they're like little helicopters. People have made necklaces. I see them gold plated, and here's like how you find them on the sidewalk. See? Those are fairy wings, right? Okay, scrapbook corner. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I think I'm going to head out. Hope y'all enjoyed it. We did this, and then we drew, if you missed drawing in our tone tan paper. This was part 1 of today with the 642 places to draw. And guys, sorry again for the lighting situation. It's so dark in here, it's tough. So we did a little koi pond. Well, we did some little quick, there it goes. From the white paper to the brown paper. Some koi fish, from a little bit from the Kew Gardens in UK, and then we drew Victoria Falls. I say we sketched it and then painted it with some craft paint there. So this is standing on this side, and there's a cliff right here, like so we did some little glyphs there, and that's looking across the river at the Victoria Falls. So anyway, guys, I hope y'all enjoyed it today. I do plan on streaming on Monday, even though it's a holiday for us in the U.S. I still plan on streaming on Monday. So I hope everybody enjoyed it and have a great weekend. And if there's any links y'all want to post, because I turn off links, or I have the mods turn off links when I leave. So if there's anything else y'all want to link to, do that now. So Hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you Monday. Bye, guys. Me want to complete it. If I start on one page and try to go page by page by page, it's going to take me forever. But I kind of like trick myself into thinking, oh, you've really got quite far in this book, so you need to keep working on it. So again, some places just have a little bit of wash. Some just have a little bit of edging, a little bit here and there. And this paper I've talked about before, it kind of feels like watercolor, kind of feels fabric-y and soft, velvety kind of feel, but it's not, I wouldn't call it true watercolor paper because it's going to pill if you keep going over and over and over a wet area without drying it in between. So if you're going to use watercolor on this paper, even though it feels like watercolor paper, I wouldn't still saturate it, or you're going to get a lot of wrinkly pages, which I don't mind some wrinkle and warbling in my pages, but you have to be aware of that in any color book, okay? And so you can see they have fold outs, see, fold outs. And I know the camera's going to flash back and forth while we're, until we get situated on a page. So, oh, flamingos, let's keep moving. Sorry, Eileen. So we did some washes on the leaves, and then I went back and colored the background with the Crayola Super Tip markers. Or sometimes I'll use the markers Eileen gave me, the, let me get them over here. And I have little palettes here for different watercolor projects. You can also just use the tray, the porcelain tray. But these are the markers that Eileen got me. They're the Kuretake Zig Clean Color Real Brush Watercolor markers. These are real watercolor in a marker. And so they're not like kid washes and bases, and there's a snake and a little bit of background colored in there. Just to show you this book real quick again. And the only drawback that I really found so far with this book is the pages are perforated. So you can see right there where the pages are perforated, which if you get them wet, too much water on them, they're going to start tearing right there. So I've even had to put a little bit of Scotch tape on a couple of them where they started ripping out. And especially if you're going back and forth like we are a lot in this book, back and forth, you're wearing on that perforation. So, you know, be aware of that. These are we did this page last time we worked in this book. So you can see did a little bit more wash. See how that's coming right there, that perforation? So if I don't want it to tear out, oh, my boo, she's there. I'm going to put a little piece of Scotch tape just so it doesn't tear out, because I'm not going to tear these pages out. I want to finish this whole book. This one we did a little bit of dripping on purpose. You don't want, you know, you're the boss of your color book. You can drip, you can stencil, you can whatever you want. Yeah, these pages are, you know, very, they're kind of fragile where the perforation is. And again, because we're going back and forth and a lot of water and a lot of stuff going on, you're more apt to have it tear. So there's just all kinds of things going on. It's markers like these are the kids' Crayola Super Tip markers, and they look like this. And they're, uh-oh, did I freeze? Hang on, guys. I think I had mail come in or something. I froze. There it goes. So they look like this. So you can get thin, thick, medium lines, but they're just water-based markers. They're not like real watercolors like these are. So we have that too. Oh, okay, hang on. Samantha just messaged me. I have to answer this. Excuse me, my granddaughter takes precedence. One moment. Okay, you got your ITC coming in the mail. Oh, yay, Koga Nation, Koga. Not sure how you pronounce it. Okay, and now let me keep going here. So this one's a little further along. Let me move all my pencils out of the way. I can't slide my book back and forth because there's no room. So you can see here, worked on this one. This one's a little further along. Rolling with it. Okay, welcome back everybody to Coffee and Art in the Morning. I'm Dee Dee. We're into another segment now, into a color book segment rather. Let me move our drawing out of the way. And yeah, so I'm also going to move my pencils. I should have done this before I hit record. Yeah, I should have. Okay, so we were drawing, we were sketching, and now I want to get out the watercolors. Okay, so if y'all have any questions, put them in caps. If you're watching this recording, it's a live show on Ustream with live people, live chat. So if you hear me answering questions repeatedly, it's because people ask questions and I answer them. Okay, so we are now going to work a little bit back in the Rainforest Escape. Let me get a water brush. It's the easiest. And so we worked in this before, and I've talked about it and how I'm working. I want to finish this whole book, but I'm doing it in little segments. So for instance, I got, and this is a fold-out book, so I'm going to have to be shuffling it back and forth. So for instance, I did some washes on this, and then I'll go back and in between with either markers, either watercolor markers or the kids' Crayola markers, and go in there and do shading, okay? But I don't really finish any one thing at a time. I kind of jump all over in this book, because by doing that, it'll make, okay, so I'm just going to kind of do a flip. None of them are 100% done. I don't think anything in here is completely done. But I showed how we did washes on this, and then went in there with the markers, the kids' markers, and it's kind of like some kind of a tiger lily type design on these flowers. So I just went in there and darkened up, and then this is a lighter one, then an orange one, and get lighter and lighter. Little frog. So I'm just going to do a quick flip, then we'll just continue to work on something. Again, this is just I'm working throughout the book. No particular order, just whatever I land on that I feel like working on until we get done. Okay? I do recommend, and I did this as an example, I think, last time, the painting the background, especially if you're using watercolor or the water-based markers like the kids' ones. If you do the background first, which, you know, I like doing that with the acrylic paint, like a acrylic paint, that won't move. Okay, so in other words, if I use, you know, an acrylic paint to paint the background, I won't have to worry about touching it with water because it's not going to move. But when you use markers, the water-based markers, watercolor markers, or watercolors in the background, you have to be aware that if you touch that with water, it's going to move. You don't have to worry about that when you use acrylic paint. Okay, so just, you got to kind of keep that in mind. A big bird there. There's a bit of a dot. And again, these are just some